Do one more and then just, yeah.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony, and I share your sentiments because I went through the same thing. It's a quick question, sir. As in regards to the judicial, state level or federal level, do you still believe in the systems, judicial systems? Thank you.
Well, I run an organization that is a consortium of conservative organizations. So if anybody you want to mention, the NRA or the Heritage or whatever, they're all members of my organization. And we gave an award at our last meeting to a very good friend, who's, I'll tell you his name is Jerry Corsi. And Jerry Corsi is a fellow that they decided that they wanted to add their notches on their belt as to having come against the president, because they spent $40 million in 19 miserable prosecutors, and they couldn't come up with anything that the president had done, so they were going to financially break anybody that had anything to do with him. And so they kept calling him before the grand jury, for which you would have to hire attorneys. They leaked the stories as they could do, so that all of his sources of income dried up. He then had to reach into his pocket to get his retirement to cash in just to stay alive. And finally, when there was nothing there, they gave him a piece of paper, and they said, and if you'll ask people, you watch MSNBC, they'll talk about, well, Trump didn't collude at all. Yes, but there were 19 indictments, okay. That 13 of those were Russians that they just made up the names, and they'll never do anything. But the other 6 were good people like my friend Jerry, who pled guilty to, he had made a reference to a meeting 2.5 years before. He said March, and it was April. And they found the email that said that. And so they gave him a piece of paper at this point, because they wanted to close up and get another notch in their belt. If you will do what General Flynn did when we threatened his son, and plead guilty to lying, that you lied to us, there will be no penalty, there'll be no fines, and there'll be no jail time or anything, and we'll go on our way. Well, when you're 70-some years old and you've consumed everything you had, and I can just sign this little piece of paper and you'll go away, that's an encouraging, you're tempted to do that. And so he agreed to the meeting, he went there, and there, one sentence: I, Jerome Corsi, did intentionally mislead the government of the United States of America. And he looked at it, and he looked at it, he looked at it. He said, I thought about it, that's a lie. And to save my skin, I'm going to sign a lie. And the Bible tells me I shouldn't do that. So he picks up the paper and says, I'll die in jail. And hands it back to him and turns and walked out. Well, when he did that, a couple of other folks began to start doing the same thing to him, and they wrapped it up and made the Mueller report at that point. And so we gave him a Lamplighter of Freedom Award. But in the process of it, we had 2 or 3 other folks stand up and tell what the Justice Department had done to them. And one of them is my very good friend Tom DeLay. Tom DeLay was the majority leader of the House of Representatives. That's one step below the Speaker. And he was indicted by a politician who wanted to run for governor of Texas. And so in the history of this man's term, there had never been what's called a no bill. That is, that you make a complaint and the grand jury says, no, we're not going to do that. The grand jury always indicts. You learn in law school, you can indict a ham sandwich, because what you say to them is, this doesn't convict anybody. All this says is that we go to court to get the truth out. Now, you don't want to oppose the truth, do you? And so he did that to Tom DeLay, and 5 times in succession. They had no bill. Said, there's nothing there. No, we're not going to do that. The last one, the 6th grand jury that he assembled, it was the last day of the meeting, and he literally buffaloed them. Talked a lot, signed these papers, do this, that, other thing, and got the indictment. Once he got the indictment, the Washington Post front page paper doing carrying on, and of course then nobody wanted to be seen with him. Members, when they went home, how do you stand on Tom DeLay indicted? Why is it you voted for a majority leader that's an indicted felon? And so the only thing he could do was resign to get the heat off of them. They then waited over 7 years to bring it to court. So that means he could make no income because he's this indicted felon. And so nobody would hire him. Nobody would have him come speak. And then they finally had a court case. And when you tell them, and the charge, I'll tell you what the charge was. The charge was money laundering. And at a fundraiser, in which you take the money and you give it to the person who's doing the candidacy, it's in the law what money laundering is. Money laundering is when you take that money and you deposit it, and then you write a check on that account that you've laundered it so you can't see where it came from. But if you take it and you hand those checks to the candidate and he reports it, by definition, that's not money laundering. And so all you have to do is the appellate court is the one that doesn't look at the facts, they only look at the law. All you have to do is to get before the appellate court, and this thing won't last 10 seconds. But they had to, so they went 7 years before they would even bring him to trial, so therefore he's lost everything. And nobody wants to be seen with him, and he's financially, physically, and politically dying. And so the court, the folks in the jury said, well, some rich Republican congressman, you know he's guilty. So they convicted him. And then it goes to the appellate court, which only looks at the law. And so he's a Republican. So the newspapers go to every Republican judge in the state of Texas. He said, you were at a meeting in 1982 in which Tom DeLay was there, and you're a part of that cabal. Are you going to recuse yourself? And brother, like dominoes, they all recused themselves. They all said, no, I won't be involved. So now you got 3 Democrat left-wing judges that despise him, and that's the appellate court. But the law's the law. And when you read it, and so he's acquitted 11 years, $13 million later, having now dissipated everything. So we honored him and said that that is a sacrifice. You didn't give your arm like some soldiers have, and you didn't give your spouse like others have, and on. But that is a sacrifice that you gave for your country. And one of the most difficult things in the world is to understand that life is not fair. And if we expect it to be fair, we're always going to be disappointed. But God develops us into something that He has in mind. And as long as we are willing to be faithful, there's a reward at the end. And for all of you, I wish you all the best.